Chapter 15. The Serpent. High Priest of the Temple of the Serpent, Dagon, stands before numerous other priestesses and priests. Most still wore their jewel-adorned robes, but they are loose and flowing. Beneath the robes, their tanned skin undulates together, writhing in their unholy ceremony of joining flesh to flesh, just as the city as a whole. The only person within the temple not engaged in some form of copulation. Dagon kneels before the deep pit, housing the serpent god Nyarlathotep. The whole city is bound as one flesh in your name, my lord. Dagon's true concern for the moment lies not with the Diamanaga, but with the growing threat posed by Enkidu and the assassinations carried out by the woman Haida Nagalik. Red eyes, each as large as a man's head, gaze up at the priest. I am strengthened by your praise. The ecstasy my children produce is a joyous sound. Their moans and screams alike are more beautiful to me than any instrument or choir. Nyarlathotep pauses, tasting Dagon's apprehension in the air. What troubles you, my servant? More and more prominent community figures are turning up dead. It seems like the city guards are chasing a ghost. The great serpent darts its tongue out of the darkness several times rapidly, tasting the air. What is being done about the two travelers from Qataltakuk? One has been seduced and become as much a participant of your celebrations as any other. He takes partner after partner, with no regard for name or station. Marbidi Apara says, grinning, my prized whore, Milana, has seen to his re-education personally. The priest only briefly pauses from intercourse to reply. And the other one, Enkidu. The serpent is familiar with the reputation of the warrior priest responsible for defeating the Sakari and destroying his altar in the home of the Eridae clan. He has... Marbidiapa pauses, struggling to speak. Proven more difficult to control. His resistance to our city's pleasures is strange and rather unprecedented. He turns down all advances by women and men alike. Are we sure that it was only the two of them who came to the city together? The timing of these murders seems suspect. The priest Dapinu asks, holding down the head of a priestess. Enkidu is a warrior priest from a zealous monotheism sect. Assassinations are not their style. The warriors of that religion have no shame in striking down their enemies in public view. Our assassin hides in the shadows and kills with poisons and trickery, Dagon explains. These sound like the methods of a woman, Marbidiopoulos scoffs. I agree that our killer and the travelers from Qataltakuk are not the same. Our mysterious assassin is indeed a female. Women are weaker and known to utilize poisons and opportunity to gain advantages over male victims. Your observations are astute, Nyarlathotep replies. The assassin is female. I have smelt her from beneath the city for weeks as she has stalked her prey. All of Dwarka's prominent men are vulnerable. Even if she did not come with them, she still could be allied with the warrior priest. His hatred for our religion is strong enough for him to desire all of our heads, Dapinu says. Her hunt began long before Enkidu arrived in Dwarka, Nyarlathotep corrects. Dapinu shrinks away in fear of the deity. He has been here several times before in the past. Perhaps their alliance was forged when he came to Dwarka to retrieve his nephew from the Eridae clan, the priest of Tultar suggests. A member of the Eridae clan was indeed one of her most recent victims. Dakon says, considering the possibility. Nyarlathotep is unsure. Unlike a true god, he does not have the gift of omniscience. Enkidu, the godly warrior priest of the Yazata, Nyarlathotep hisses. I do not like him at all. See to it that he is killed and sacrificed to me as soon as possible. Set a trap for both him and our assassin. Neither of our enemies will resist an opportunity that slay my head priest, even if they are not allied. Dakon swallows hard. You mean to use me as bait, my lord? Does that upset you? Should I select someone else to be my mortal representative? No, my lord. I shall do whatever you ask of me. Dakon trembles with fear. The other priests back away, equally terrified. Make yourself highly visible throughout Diamanaga. Keep your guards at a distance, but be vigilant and spread them throughout the crowds in the clothing of the common folk. Our enemies will try to strike, but your swords will instead fall upon them from all sides. They shall be slain in your name, my lord. No. Keep them alive. I want the pleasure of their sacrifice to be fresh. Bring them here before me, so that I may devour them alive. Dakon shudders at the thought of being devoured alive by the large serpent. Death would be slow and agonizing. My enemies are also the enemies of Dwarka. Has this city not flourished under my grace? Enkidu seeks to steal away your happiness and drag this entire city down into the self-loathing that embodies his patron deity. He will die, and Dwarka will thrive as always. Yes, my lord. Dakon bows before walking past the orgy and into another chamber filled with members of the Dwarka City Guard. The men are being pleasured by slave girls, and pay his entrance no attention. Find this man Enkidu and bring him here alive. Our lord wishes to feast upon his entrails. The guards disperse, wishing to please their god in any way possible. The pleasures of the flesh can wait. They have duties to fulfill. Described as being well built with golden brown hair and light skin and eyes, they are confident they will find the fugitive quickly. Light-colored hair is a rare mutation in the world, and they do not believe that many will be present in Dwarka. Equipped with leather armor for mobility, there is little protection from the sword. Dwarka warriors rely more on their speed and skill with a blade than on having a strong defense. Moving through the city rapidly and doing their best to evade the tangled bodies of the celebratory, the guards search each street for the foreigner named Enkidu. Told that he possesses a threat to the safety of all Dwarka, the guards are focused on finding Enkidu as quickly as possible. Several fully nude citizens make moves for the guards, trying to touch their ultra-masculine bodies. It is an honor to receive the seat of a city guard, and all the women vie for that chance. One of the guards breaks a woman's jaw with a backhand, barely slowing his stride. Get out of our way! The guard shouts, swiftly moving through the group of bodies, as they part to allow them through in fear. Others caress the bleeding woman as she sobs, trying to comfort her. Enkidu and Haida navigate the dark alleys, tripping over tired bodies multiple times. The disgust and anger Enkidu feels has lessened significantly since his first arrival in the city, and he fears that his pity for these poor souls will weaken his resolve. The anger within him still exists, but now it is solely directed towards the priesthood and the serpent itself. He is saddened that so many children are brought up in this sin, and learn to imitate the immorality of their elders. If he could, he would rescue each one as he did Galen, but he knows this to be impossible. 2 Dwarka citizens sit on the street out of breath and replenish their fluids from a shared leather wineskin. The guards approach and demand to know if they have seen the light-haired stranger. One of the men points into the crowd and the guards hurry forward. "Damn, they have already found us again," Haida whispers, pulling Enkidu along through the crowd by his hand. "Your unique appearance is not one designed for blending in." Without warning, Enkidu draws his sword and pivots, slicing upwards in an arc. He cuts open the belly of a guard just as he reaches out for him. The man falls back as his insides spill forth, offered no protection by the leather armor against Enkidu's Yazatan-created blade. Another guard draws steel, but before he can swing, his arm is severed just below the bicep. Enkidu drives an elbow into the chest of the man, pushing him into a third, and turns to cut through the neck of a 4th guard. Haida quickly drops into a crouch and covers her head in terror as the guards fall in a heap around her. "You will get us both killed by how much you stand out," Haida shouts, leaping to her feet and dashing down a side road. People crowd around the bodies, and Enkidu hears the screams of several women from behind them. More guards will not be far behind after that public scene. We must find this shelter you spoke of earlier. Haida's eyes study the buildings as they run, finally stopping and kicking in the door of one. "In here," she orders, disappearing inside. Reluctantly, Enkidu follows her into a shop full of strange fragrances and bright colors. Mixing multiple powders together quickly, Haida is able to create a paste with which to darken Enkidu's skin and add a natural dye to his hair to turn it more brown than golden. "We will blend in much better this way," she says, seeing Enkidu frown. His unique hair and pigmentation is a reminder of his heritage as of having Yazatan blood and is a source of pride. Covering these features up seems detestable to the warrior. "You will thank me when we survive the city guards." "So you say," Enkidu grumbles. "I feel as a fool." Haida laughs, running her fingers through his hair to work in the dye. Her breath catches, and she finds it surprising that she is so taken by this man. Enkidu, to his credit, does not seem to mind her attention, and does not pull away from her touch. She wonders if he has gained some form of respect for her and her resourcefulness, or if he has finally come around to see some attraction towards her. "You look like a gorgeous Dwarka stallion," Haida laughs. "They will all be throwing themselves at you even more furiously now." "Wash it off, damn you. I do not wish for more of the stink upon me. I smell like a prostitute." Haida rests her hand on his shoulder and is relieved that he does not recoil in disgust at her touch. "Your bright hair and skin is not a common sight here. Typically, your village does not do regular trade with this port, does it?" Aside from the route traveling through perilous mountains and the domains of bandit tribes, the debauchery and lawlessness of the city is legendary. We tend to keep our distance. Many would be drawn to the promise of exotic beauties and delights. Cities collapse when their leaders have no moral integrity. His thoughts drift to the cowardice of his own elders during the Sakari invasion, when they created a golden effigy to appease the Sakari leader at Nyana. Dwarka has stood for nigh 1,000 years as the trade center of the entire world. Sin will always catch up. One cannot run from it all the time. Without complete absolution, Dwarka is doomed. Besides, all of Katatahuk does not look as I do. My ancestry is blessed with Yazatan vigor. What is this Yazata that you refer to? I have never heard such a word. Are they a tribe from lands farther away than even your Katatahuk? Enkidu smiles, enjoying the momentary relief from their current stress. In a manner of speaking, the Yazata are holy beings and emissaries of the Creator. They are immensely powerful and just, with white hair and eyes. A golden radiance shines all around them that subdues all who stand against. Could not these holy Yazata be entreated to come to our aid? It is unlikely. The Yazata do not cater to our whims, and even I do not understand their motivations. For a city as evil as Dwarka, they will shed no tears in its downfall. Haida is silent for a moment, thinking on the fate of a city that not only fails to recognize its evil, but rather celebrates it. She is grieved to agree with Enkidu's assessment that Dwarka is on a limited clock. Despite this, she cannot abandon those among the populace that, like her, abhor the behavior of the followers of Nyarlathotep. We must still try to save this city. If we can turn just one person away from the Serpent, have we still failed? Haida asks. If we can kill Nyarlathotep, we will do much more than save one person. You are strong, Haida says, backing away to look out the single window for any sight of more guards. But even you cannot slay a god. Enkidu growls, gripping Tiavan tightly. I have already told you, the Serpent is no god. I was trained by the Yazata and defeated the strongest of the Sakari invaders after they attacked my city. An oversized worm does not frighten me. Haida raises her voice defiantly. I have seen the Black Serpent. He is fearsome. His coils encircle the temple chambers many times over. She begins to tremble. As a slave to one of the priests, I saw the horrors that beast is capable of. It devours men whole. It feasts on screaming children with no regard for human life. Its very gaze paralyzes men and leaves them helpless. The Serpent will meet its end by my blade, Enkidu vows. Of that I am certain. No longer will the beast peddle sin to grow its own power and mock the true God above all. Dwarka will not so easily part with their ways and celebrations. Even without the Serpent, the people will continue with their practices. The majority of the city may not even believe that their god has perished. I cannot rectify their ignorance, Enkidu says, staring at his blessed sword. If Dwarka continues in their sin after I have handed them an escape, then damn them all for their stupidity. Haida laughs. You are very set in your ways. In a manner, you are similar to the Dwarka in that respect. Enkidu makes a sound of sheer contempt, standing up and walking around the shop. When did you first come to Dwarka? Haida asks. Enkidu pauses, thinking of the first time he laid his eyes upon the beauty of Taraxime Eride. He was enthralled by her dark eyes, raven hair, and sun-kissed skin. For the first time in his life, he was overtaken by his passion and baser instincts. No amount of rationalization could justify his lust. The illusions that he once had of love have long since passed. Enkidu knows the truth now, that he did lust after Taraxime. It was his loins that wanted her, not his heart. In the warrior's soul, he knew, even then, that as a Dwarka resident, Taraxime would be too deeply rooted in the beliefs of her people to be made a proper wife. During my time as a young journeyer, my master brought me here with him to speak to the people of the one true God. They were not receptive to our preaching and became violent. Despite this, my master brought me back several more times, and I could never understand why. The people of Dwarka did not want to listen to my master's warnings. They desired to continue their evil ways. He pauses again, this time expressing some long repressed pain. During our final trip here, my master was mercilessly beaten and raped before being left to die. I wanted nothing more than to kill every single man and woman of age in this vile city. The power of my hatred was too great for me to contain. I met a woman who calmed me, but in time she was revealed to be no different from any one of this city. There is a small group of us who do not believe in Dwarka's practices. We meet in secret and discuss ways to bring about change. It was during these meetings that my targets tonight were selected. Assassinating evil men is not enough. To bring about any true change, you must come up with a plan to gain access to the Serpent and kill it. We are not warriors. Most of us were born into slavery from ancestors long ago taken captive and used as currency in the bazaar. I have met numerous slaves that were skilled fighters. That is no excuse. No one is just naturally gifted that way. Everyone must have someone teach them how to fight. Enkidu disagrees with her assessment, but no longer feels like arguing. I will kill the serpent myself and end its evil. My friends and I can get you inside the temple, Haida promises. That much we will be able to do. You know little of me, yet you bring me into the confidence of your rebellion. Enkidu frowns. You do not have much caution. The same can be said of you, running off to be alone with a woman who you just saw kill a man. She smiles. Besides, I do not think you realize just how telling your refusal of me was of your character. On this day, it is almost unheard of to be turned down for coupling. I'm sorry that you seem to be proud of this. Haida lets out a sigh of frustration. Enkidu is unwavering in his stubbornness. I was not referring to myself specifically. I mean the people of the city copulate with anyone or anything they can get a hold of. Not even the livestock are safe from their lusts. For a man to turn down a willing female partner that is in her prime and physically fit is peculiar. You are very attractive, but I did not come to this city to find a bride. Haida again laughs. Your naivety is so cute. The majority of these couplings will not lead to relationships. You mock me, Enkidu growls. I do not like it. My intention was not to insult you. I find it rather refreshing that you are unlike all the other men of this city. That indeed is a compliment. The men of this city are disgusting. I intended it as a compliment. Do you really think that I desire a man who would have a meaningless relation with other women, with other men, or even animals? I would hope not. The dwarka disgust me as much as anyone. I've had to live my entire life surrounded by their filth. Foreigners can leave should this day of celebration not be to their liking. As a slave, I have no choice but to be passed around like a cup of wine. For me, there was never any pleasure. Each coupling was a knife that cut into me and tore out another piece of my soul. In time, sex lost all importance or meaning to me. If I was to be used as a tool, I would also use it to my advantage. No master ordered you to engage Kubo or those other men. Why do you defile yourself, even when you have a choice to not be anything more than property? As I told you before, we are not all warriors. The only way I know of to deliver punishment to evil men is to get inside of their personal defenses. A man is most vulnerable while he's engaged in relations. Enkidu is again reminded of painful memories of Taraxime and can only nod in agreement. What did Kubo Erede do to become one of your targets? The leader of the Erede clan was one of the greatest supporters and financiers of the priesthood. Others had attempted to speak with him, but they were killed or sacrificed to the Serpent. The only way that I could guarantee his removal was to play off his lusts and kill him myself. Enkidu's voice becomes more concerned and hesitant. Does it still feel like rape even though you are making the choice yourself? I do not think about it anymore. Pleasure or pain, I do not feel it. Everything that I consider within me to still be good is sent off to a far-off place until the deed is completed. It is sad. Your body is more of a weapon against you than your enemies. Haida feels warmth in her chest and can only smile, despite the conversation being dark and painful. I do not believe that the damage done to me by this city is permanent. I think that I will find love and happiness, when the Serpent has been destroyed. Enkidu nods and returns her smile. I promise to bring about that opportunity by slaying Nyarlathotep. With a loud cry, a message hawk circles the guard post near the newly repaired front gates of Kataltakuk. Captain Baron takes a paper strip from the message hawk as it lands on its perch and smiles as he begins reading. For the price of one of the demons, I will marry a princess, Baron says with joy. The king agreed to your proposal? One of his most trusted soldiers, named Inui, asks. Baron nods. Congratulations, sir. Which one shall we secure for transport? We will give them the smallest, weakest one, Baron laughs. They have never seen one, so they will not know any differently. Nodding, Inui leaves to gather up the Sakari gift for the king of Demacy. Come on, Inui says, pointing to one of the Sakari. He places shackles on the hands and feet of the prisoner, and several other guards stand ready with their swords drawn as the enclosure is opened. If the other Sakari should try to make a run for the exit, the guards hope to be able to prevent them from success by the show of force. Nasria smiles, knowing he could easily rip the hearts from the chests of the men before they could even know what was happening. You're coming with us to the city of Demacy. Nasria takes a moment to look outside the enclosure to see that the feared warrior that bested the legendary generals of Averno is nowhere around. The light-haired one is different from the others, Nasria thinks. If it were not for him, Inyana and the generals would have taken this city. During the invasion, Nasria was among the few that survived the scouting party led by Captain Rivius. He saw their forces easily defeated by one human warrior. Enkidu moved like a blur, cutting through their ranks, which broke as soon as the captain was felled. Unlike the well-trained soldiers under Queen Inyana's command, Rivius's unit was composed largely of criminals and prisoner conscripts taken from territories in the west, conquered by the Narayana army. Crawling away after the battle, Nasria was able to observe the conclusion of the invasion and accurately judge the power of the humans. Sakari Volza is loaded into a horse cart and escorted by 4 city guards as they travel north up the mountainous trails towards the city of Demacy. Demacy is an older, but much smaller city than either Kataltakuk or Levant, with a population right around 2,000. The city is elevated high in the mountains and protected on all sides by steep cliffs and ravines. Demacy is the source of much of the water of the southern regions, and the regulation of the mountain lakes and springs. Water distribution is the city's chief source of exporting. Many of the lower-class Demacy citizens travel to the foothills each day to herd goats and keep watch for Galt marauders. Did only the cowards survive? Inui asks Volza as he travels beside the cart. I fought against the rest of the hordes and killed 4 of the fiercest warriors I've ever seen. You appear reserved and smaller physically than many of the others. How is it that you survived? Volza plays the role assigned him by Nasria. Yes, I hid. I feared for my life, and sought to remove myself from the greater threat. I could never have stood up against brave warriors, such as yourself. Inui grins with pride. Of course you could not. I killed 4 of you by myself, he repeats arrogantly. The Grigori Yazata Cedrion appears before Captain Baron in a flash of light. The man tumbles backwards from his chair, spilling ale all over himself. Congratulations, future noble of Demacy, the Grigori says, grinning slyly. Who are you? Baron asks shakily, drawing his sword while still crouched on the floor. I am what is called a Yazata. Are you familiar? A Yazata? They are real? Baron whispers in awe. Cedrion nods. We are, and I have chosen you for a very important task. Are you willing to do this for me, Baron of Katal Takuk? You know me? Baron whispers, still shocked. Cedrion grimaces, trying to hold back his disgust. In truth, he wishes for nothing more in the moment, to slice the disgusting human from ear to ear with his blade. Your brave aura could not go unnoticed for long. I have been observing you and this city for a while now. You are right to have preserved the lives of some of the Sakari. Sakari? You mean the demons? Cedrion nods. They are very rare and very powerful, as you have surmised. Are you aware that they were recently attempts to steal them from under your very nose? Baron's eyes widen in horror. That cannot be. Do not become too troubled. I saw to it personally that their lives were eliminated. But the Sakari are not safe here. I urge you to take them all with you to Demacia, and go into seclusion, while I deal with any other villains. Baron nods. I will do as you say. You can count on me. Cedrion laughs. I knew that I could. You have just the right kind of strong character that is needed to carry out my will. Hoping to hide from the Dwarka guards for as long as possible, Enkidu and Haida remain in the apothecary shop for several hours. Haida prepares various herbs in a pestle, grinding them together into a fine powder. You seem to have a lot of knowledge of herbs, Enkidu says, watching her move about the shelves as if they were her own. My mother was a healer in our village. She could do just about anything with plants. Haida smiles, thinking fondly of her mother. Her herbal medicines were thought of as magical in their effectiveness. I picked up as much as I could by watching her, but while I was still young we were sold into slavery, and I was separated from my parents. Enkidu tenses, his hatred for slavery bringing bile to his throat. And believing in the opportunities for all humans to seek peace and serenity in the Creator, the idea of others subjugating peoples and smothering their freedoms is one he cannot fathom. Our village was raided by the Ghana, and we were all brought on ships here to Dwarka. My mother was sold quickly for a high price for her skills, but they did not have need for me. I was instead bought by one of the Serpent's priests, to be trained as a temple maiden. Haida flashes a disturbing smile, and Enkidu feels the chill. He knows this young woman has been through much in her life to survive. The priest met with an unfortunate accident, and I did my best to blend into the crowds and disappear. The followers of the Serpent mistreated you. He makes a statement rather than a question. The priests do not care about age, gender, or even species. In the eyes of the Serpent, they will copulate with any. The more resistance they get, the more it pleases their god. Blood sends the Serpent into a frenzy, and in turn, his priests gain power. Enkidu knows, once and for all, that he must finish what his father began years ago. The followers of the Serpent tried to expand far beyond their stronghold in Dwarka, beaten back by Som Hyalura. After killing the Serpent's priests, Som infiltrated the temple of Nyarlathotep and attempted to slay the false god himself. Much stronger than his father and less forgiving, Enkidu vows that he will see the Serpent die at his feet before returning home to Katal Takuk. Too many lives have been ruined or ended by Nyarlathotep and his acolytes to allow him to continue to exist. Did you know your father? Enkidu asks. My father was a farmer. He was not a smart man, but he was kind. When the Ghana came, he was one of the first to stand against them, and one of the first to die. The Serpent killed mine, Enkidu says. He looks down to see that he has instinctively drawn Tiavan, and slowly slides it back into its sheath. He fought the expansion of the Serpent, and came to slay the heart of the cult's evil. The Serpent was too much for him, and he was killed. And you came here to get revenge? No. Enkidu pauses, realizing that his decision to pursue this course, rather than immediately secure the loan for his city, is heavily fueled by that desire. I came here to speak with the city lenders, to secure enough supplies, to rebuild my village after it was ravaged by demonic invaders. Yet you pursue the Serpent and not the lenders. My emotions are difficult to control in this city, Enkidu admits. I thought myself strong enough to keep them in check, yet I fear I have now ruined any chance of saving my people from starvation. We can take the coin of the priests that they use to live in luxury after we kill the Serpent. There should be more than enough to rebuild your city. I cannot use the coin that is so drenched in sin. Many people have died in order for that wealth to be accumulated. Anything we find I must destroy and cleanse. Haida finds that decision extreme, and plans to discover a way to deter him when the time comes. What are the chances that the priesthood is unaware of my being pursued by the city guard? None, Haida reluctantly answers. The priesthood are the ruling class of Dwarka. Nothing happens without their authorization. Enkidu curses, punching his fist into the nearest wall. The building shakes, and pieces of the ceiling become dislodged and fall. I needed only to last one more night in this city with no drama. We were to acquire our loan in the morning, but now I surely would be arrested, and our loan refused should I appear before the priests. All is not lost. We need only to reach my fellows without the city guard catching us. With their help, we can liberate Dwarka from the Serpent, and save your own city. Then we cannot hide in this shop any longer. Take me to meet the Serpent's enemies. Lianlim regrets leaving Enkidu and Tarvin behind, but she knows that it was the best option for Katal to cook. So long as she returns with the food, her people will survive. In the wilderness between Dwarka and Muria, their carts stop. Lianlim dismounts from her horse, wondering why they have ceased their traveling. What is wrong? She asks, approaching the front cart. You have our thanks for getting us safely from Dwarka, Maon says. We could never have organized this escape on our own. Because of you, we no longer have to live our lives as mere objects. No one should have to use their body for the pleasure of someone else against their will, Lianlim says. I cannot believe we actually did it, one of the girls, named Tila, says. All of those years being forced to work for the madam, and now we can finally make our own choices. Seems a little angered by Tila's disrespect. We were never forced to do anything. Madame Shiraruke did not own us as slaves. She gave us the opportunities that no one else in the city would. We were allowed to choose when to work, and could refuse any client at any time. If you want someone to blame the conditions that we lived in, blame the oversaturation of competition in the market, not the madame. How could we ever expect good wages in a city whose every street has a dozen girls just like us, fighting for the same share of the clientele? Tila frowns. If you liked working for the madame so much, why not just go back to her? Maon strikes Tila across the face with an open hand. I allowed you to break free of your situation and come with us. Do not ever mistake my compassion for weakness again. Tila slowly nods, rubbing her face in tears. Where will you all go next? Lanlam asks. The world is big, and not every city is as corrupt as Dwarka. Maon turns to glare briefly towards Lanlam, surprising the girl. The cuteness of your naivety is beginning to wear thin. We did not leave Dwarka because of any corruption. Relocation simply opens up more job opportunities. Lanlam is surprised to hear this. You are not quitting prostitution? We finally have the chance to start over somewhere without any competition. Continuing our trade without a madam, or city regulations, and extreme competition will allow us the riches we have always desired. You left to make more money? Lanlam whispers. Not to get away from the evil of the city leadership, or the religious oppression? Followers of Nyarlathotep face no oppression, Maon says flatly. We will continue to spread the love of our God to our new home, and ensure that the Serpent's reach only grows. Lanlam gasps in horror, having grossly misjudged her new companions. Did you not say yourself that you and most of the girls feared and hated the priesthood? Maon nods. That has nothing to do with Nyarlathotep. Those men have twisted God's teachings and love to make us women only as possessions. The Serpent's true love is not reserved for greedy men. We will begin a new priesthood for Nyarlathotep, but this time it will be comprised only of priestesses. One of the other girls speaks up, her voice tired from having lived longer and seeing more than the rest of them. I do not know if I can continue, Ruruku says. I gave up too many children to the Serpent because I could not afford to feed them. Now I think I would just like to settle down and raise a family of my own. Maon scoffs. Do whatever. When the Serpent rises, we will pay attention to those who stood with us and who stood against us. Is there not some other way? Lanlam asks. I cannot say that I am a true believer in any god, but I have seen the evil that comes from the devotion of wicked men and women to their beliefs. Perhaps we would all be better off to just leave our religions behind. How can you doubt the power of Nyarlathotep? Maon asks, grabbing Lanlam by the shoulders and moving uncomfortably close to the girl. Could you not feel his power coursing through you while in his presence? Lanlam pulls away. I felt something, yes, but as we move further from Dwarka, I can see that whatever I felt was artificial. I am no slave to emotions or lust. Only I control my own actions. If losing yourself is the power of your God, I want no part in it. You need not worry about us. We shall go our own way and trouble you no more. With the food and gold that we have taken from Dwarka, we can start anew anywhere we want. Never again will we be forced to make others rich for our hard work. What do you mean? Lanlam is surprised, caught off guard by Maon's words. Maon stabs Lanlam in the gut with a small knife, whispering softly into her ear. I am saying that we no longer need you. The sharp pain and the shock of Maon's betrayal are too much for Lanlam, and she cannot form a response. She stares forward, gasping as blood drools from the corners of her mouth. You were an interesting challenge, but your devotion to your people is not something I wish to compete against. Please do not think that I did not enjoy our time together. But alas, it was just not meant to be. Withdrawing her knife, Maon allows Lanlam to collapse onto the grass. The other girls strip her of her clothing and weapons, leaving Lanlam to die alone and naked in the wilderness. Blood swells out around Lanlam's form as she hears the carts and horses moving forward again. How was I such a fool? She wonders. I should have waited for Enkidu and Tarvin. Now my choices have led to this. I alone have doomed my people to die. Lanlam winces, willing herself to fight the pain and move her arms. The thought of the citizens of Kataltakuk starving to death is not something a young woman can handle. No, I cannot let that happen. Kataltakuk cannot die. My people must survive. Clawing at the ground, she pulls herself upright. Maon will regret her betrayal. I refuse to die. I promise that I will catch up to them and reclaim the grain for my people, and kill each of the betrayers. Kataltakuk shall endure. She slowly stands, blood running down her back and legs. Only then may I allow this body to perish. The caravan for Demacy travels the rocky terrain northeast of Kataltakuk. A contingent of the city guard rides along the edges of the group, keeping watch for any signs of marauders. What would you do if bandits actually did attack? Volza asks from his cage in the center of the small caravan in a covered cart. There are not many of you. I expect an adequate force of marauders would make quick work of you. Do not sound so eager for that outcome, Inui responds. Should we be killed, you will just be another spoil for them to fight over. I could handle a band of marauders myself. If you die, freedom is mine. Inui looks back at him, slowly revealing his bow and quiver lying across the rear of his saddle. As I catch my dying breath, I will make sure to let loose an arrow to bring you along with us to the underworld. Volza grumbles, having nothing to say in response. Tell me, why did you think that your invasion would be successful? Our intelligence was flawed. Advisors to King Marduk reported that no human was as strong as our elites. When we arrived, we were overwhelmed by the strength of your defenders and the skill of your magicians. He is silent for a moment. We stood no chance of conquering your world when we could not even subdue a small city. You came close, but we have Enkidu and the magicians to thank for our victory. Volza recalls the lighter-haired warrior cutting a swath through their forces. The flash of his Yazatan blade was blinding, and his movements were as lightning. This Enkidu, how is it that he was so strong? No man should have been able to overpower our elites. Some say he is a descendant of the Yazata from the days long ago, when they came down to our world to take human mates. Another guard rushes back to them out of breath. A band of Ghana raiders are over the next ridge. How many? Inui asks. The guard hesitates to answer, and Inui knows that it is bad. 50, maybe 60. A good half of them are on horseback. Damn. Can we alter our course and swing wide around them? We would have to turn around and spend another day and a half backing out of this trail. The mountains are too steep here to go around. We do not have enough supplies to add another day or more. Can we survive if we try to force our way through? They are camped, but with that many horses, they will catch up. Volza speaks up, and both guards turn to look at him. I have a solution. What do you have to add, demon? Release me, and I will slaughter their encampment. You will not lose a single man. And risk you turning on us or escaping? I shall do neither. I am alone in this world. Where would I go? I have nothing to gain from treachery. If I am cooperative, your captain will find the means to open the doorway to my world and grant me my freedom. Inui nods. Do it. Let him loose. The other guards are hesitant, and Volza grins as the door on his cage is unlatched, and his restraints are cut away. The Sakari hops down from the cart, stretching his legs. He extends his claws and bares his long fangs. The guards nervously grip their weapons and take several steps backward. I thank you for freeing me, Volza hisses, still grinning. Now, all of you will die. Startled, the guards tremble with fear before Volza begins to laugh. Just a joke. the Sicarii says with a wave of his hand, still laughing. Volza quietly slips over the ridge and down towards the encampment. 2 men standing watch are taken unawares, their throats torn open by the Sicarii's razor-sharp claws. Slipping into the nearest tent, a woman starts to scream, but a backhand slices open her face and lays her out across the floor. One by one, the Sicarii sneaks into the tents and kills all that he encounters. Sleeping bandits' throats are cut, and their chests are punctured by impaling claws. Shouting stirs the rest of the camp. After several of the bodies are discovered, Volza sticks to the shadows, assaulting several men from behind. To create a distraction, the Sicarii uses his limited magical knowledge to set several fires. Returning to the caravan, Volza looks back on the carnage and smiles. By now, most of the tents have burst into flame, and the bandits hurriedly run about trying to douse the fires. "We should have no trouble riding straight through their camp," Volza says. The guards are both impressed and terrified by the Sicarii's handiwork. Rather than being put back in a cage, Volza is allowed to ride atop the cart as the caravan moves over the ridge with haste. Multiple bandits are caught by surprise as the caravan rides through their camp. The men attempt to slow the riders, but they are cut down with ease. The majority of the bandits remain focused on the fires, allowing the caravan through with little resistance. The riders did not slow, making sure to put several hours between them and the bandits before stopping to rest. "Good work back there," one of the guards says, bringing Volza a roasted rabbit and some ale. The Sicarii is surprised at this gesture. While his plan was to convince the humans he was not a viable threat, he never assumed it would be this easy. Volza nods, taking the food and drink. "How far to this Demarchi place?" Volza asks, his mouth full. "Another 2 days, perhaps another half a day beyond that," Inouye replies. "Are you not frightened that those men back in that camp will attack your village in retaliation? We have a mission, and we cannot concern ourselves with such distractions."